Hi, I'm Elizabeth and I like to sew smart, and today I'm going to show you how you can sew smart and make a little circular bag to carry your cords or your bits and pieces into your sewing class. It has a zip across the front, very easy to make. If you come a bit closer you'll see it's a top stitched zip. A friend of mine brought me some fancy zips back from Singapore. There's one another colour. So I decided I would make this little bag to carry my sewing machine cord in for class. For this project you will need two types of fabric, two colours that will contrast well together. I've chosen a dark floral grey and this black and white that look quite nice together, and my zip is grey. You'll need two 9-inch circles for the base of the bag, plus a circle of lightweight wadding to put in between. You'll need two of the template that's in the pattern, which you can get from my Etsy shop. You'll need two pieces of the darker fabric and two pieces of the paler fabric cut in that template, which I've got here. You will of course need your zip and a fat quarter of whichever fabric you choose for your binding. I've chosen the pale because I like the pale and I had more of it. For the top pieces of the bag, you've got cut two of the dark and you've cut two of the pale, but you will need to pair them up with a pale and a dark. And on the template there's a line that is 1/2 inch in from the flat edge, and just mark that with your friction pen because you're going to actually stitch the paler to the darker on your sewing machine on both pieces. So you're going to make that seam along there and turn them the right way out. Don't trim your seam back because it's going to give your zip stability underneath. So I've stitched my two pieces together, the dark and the light. See it there? I've ironed it, pressed it down, so you've got one piece with the dark and one piece inside with the light. Don't worry if your circles don't look particularly round at this point because you are going to trim them off. Take the bottom two pieces away. Now you've got these two pieces for the top. Now your zip is going to go in the middle right there. The zip is going to go on the top right across there. So I'm going to pin the zip, leaving the teeth in the middle right there so it doesn't catch when you open it and close it. So I'm going to start on one side, pin the zip on one side. So if I move that along there, I'm going to pin that there so that the teeth are just off the edge. So I will pin it. And then using my, it needs to come a bit further along, using my zipper foot, I'm now going to take that to the machine. So I've got my zipper foot on and I'm now going to stitch down here. I've opened the zip because of this little finishing nib here. I'm going to stitch down and I'm going to butt my foot right up to the teeth. Pin on it, just pull that back a bit, make sure my teeth are in. Right, I'll get this far, drop my needle, and now my hand will come into your view, but pull my zipper up and carry on all the way down to the bottom. Just stitch right off the bottom of the fabric, and then I will cut my thread and then we will do the other side. So I've stitched the other side of my zip in. I have put a light zigzag in the bottom at the opening because the zip doesn't go right to the outer edge, both ends, that will hold it secure. So my zip opens really nicely now and has the lining alternate. You could put both of the dark pieces on one side and both of the light pieces on, it's choice. You can make that for yourself. So now I'm going to pin the top pieces to the 3-layer bottom, the dark fabric, the wadding and the lining fabric. I'm going to pin it all the way around, and I am going to machine stitch very lightly based around there to hold it all in place. The next thing is your binding. Now I've got a fat quarter here that I've actually going to use, but if you don't have a fat quarter, if you've got half of a fat quarter like this, that would be sufficient. But how I cut the bias, you have to have bias for this because you can't put straight binding on your circular project. So I'm going to put that on there, put my ruler on the top. I've lined, I've cut, I've folded my fat quarter in half diagonally, so we've got the stretch for the bias. I've got that right on the tip there, so I'm going to cut straight down here with my rotary cutter. And I will line that up again on the line. Let's put that down here. Just line it up once more. And then I'm going to cut 2.5 inches in from here to here. I can actually do that on the fabric because I haven't got the fabric quite straight. And that's my 2.5 inch binding strip. That's the first one. I think I would need about 32 inches to go around this. So I will cut another one, another 2.5 inch strip. And probably one more. That's 2. I will join them, I'll do another one and join them together. When I've joined them together, then I will press them in half, and then I'll come back and show you how you can start your binding on your bag. I have just put an overlocking little stitch all the way around. That is because when I open my bag, I need to know that all the edges are caught in inside and there's no gaps between the layers. So I've done that. So I'm now ready to use my binding. Now I joined the 2 binding strips that I cut. I've joined those on the diagonal, but I took about 7 inches off the end to make the little tag for hanging. Now it's the piece of the 2.5 inch that I cut. I folded it in half, and then I folded the outside in and over again. I'm now going to stitch 1/8 of an inch down each side, and I will stitch that on. You can put it on underneath the binding, but I prefer to put it on the top. It's easier to take off if you decide later you don't want it on there. So I'm now going to start putting my binding on, and I will start on this side and gently ease it round. Now I'm going to use, because this is a 2.5 inch binding, I'm going to use the outside of my foot. As many of you know, I use my 1/4 inch foot to top stitch with on my binding. I'm going to start about here, leave that much gap. I'm going to start easing it round, stretching it just a little bit on the way round, not too much, making it fit, and then I will show you the 1/4 inch foot after. I'm using a normal foot, and I'm going to stitch on the outside of that foot. I will show you right now how that's done. I've left about a 4.5 inch tail there. I'm using a normal foot, and I am lining up my binding and the outside edge of my bag to the outside edge of this foot, and slowly come around. Don't pull it, just let it feed under. Just let it feed right under all the way around, and then join it in your preferred way of joining at the finish. If you don't know how to join it, I've got handy hints 1 and 2 about putting binding on and joining binding, so you can refer to them. All the way around. stitched all the way around with my binding and joined it on the top side. Now I've turned it to the back and I've put my 1/4 inch foot on, and I've positioned my needle to come down into the left hand hole on my 1/4 inch foot. It's a 0, you'll have to reduce that to 0 to get it in that position. And all I'm going to do now is pull this over to the back, line my binding up on the back here with the little shield on my 1/4 inch foot, and I'm going to start stitching all the way around. And by using the 1/4 inch foot on the top side, you'll have a neat line of stitching right on the edge of your binding. It will look really nice and neat. So I stitched my binding on. I stitched it on, if you remember, on the back side, and it's now come out really nicely and neatly. There's a top stitch now on the front side all the way around. It's all ready now. There you go. I'll open it for you to fill with your goodies, whatever you choose to put in there. And I have put on a little tag on the top. I stitched it down onto the back, little loop. You don't have to put that on if you prefer not to. I had about 35 inches of binding, the bias with a little give in it, and that's all I've got left of that, because I took the loop out of that piece as well. I have still quite a bit of fabric left from the fat quarter that I cut the binding from, but you can use that for patches or binding on a future project. And if you've enjoyed this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe. This pattern and others are available in my Etsy shop, and if you'd like to see more of my sewing tutorials and handy hints, please support me on Patreon.